right, surprise everybody, surprise. The podcast is officially back. I know it's been a while, but we've been discussing it and we're finally bringing it back to kick off 2023 and NASCAR's 75th anniversary. It's going to be a great season. You thought last year was fun. I think this year's going to be fun as well. Well, as you know, I'm Alex Gray, and along here with my friend Michael Klein here. We just got back from Daytona. We had a pretty fun week down there.
Oh yeah, it was a great weekend down there. It was nice to have you down there this time. Nice to not have to drive alone, especially with me getting sick earlier in the week. So that was really fun. It was nice being able to get back into the infield because that's something that we've not had in a while, just since the pandemic. But I had a great time down there, and I'm happy to recap it here.
Yeah, absolutely. That's always been the drill. If we go somewhere to a race, I drive. We take shifts. I drive at some point. So, we'll definitely recap it. There was a ton of racing. Saw a ton of races that week, more than usual, which was a lot of fun. If we want, we can get started. Obviously, the Truck Series race. That one, unfortunately, had a bit of a lackluster ending due to Mother Nature. That was the only day that entire week and weekend where we had any threat of rain. And it wasn't like a torrential downpour. It was just like it kept misting on and off. And it just
Right.
would not stop. And so I thought for a moment perhaps it could have triggered one of the wrecks that happened right in front of us. Not entirely sure. But Zane Smith was the lucky guy. Got out in front and had the lead when they called the race with 20 to go and ended up winning that truck race to kick off the now Craftsman Truck Series. No, you're not in the wrong decade. It's indeed the Craftsman Truck Series again.
Yeah, it feels good to be able to say that again.
Yeah, it really does. I'm looking at the running order here. Christian Eckes in the 19 finishing in third. Colby Howard with the top 5 finishing in fourth. Tyler Ankrum with a strong showing in 7th. Chase Elliott was on the 35, finished in 10th. Travis Pastrana finished 13th. So a good run for him. And obviously he qualified for the Daytona 500. We'll talk about him as well. What kind of takeaways do you have from the truck race?
It's kind of hard to take away anything from Daytona because it's obviously such a wild card race. So, I don't really know if I want to say, what exactly is going to happen from this point on and who seemed like they're going to be hot this year, other than Zane Smith. But, I feel like everybody's kind of expecting that. And obviously, I think getting these cup starts under his belt like he plans on is just going to help him out that much more. So right now, that's the only takeaway I can take is that definitely watch out for Zane again this season.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I mean, Zane was on fire last year. I think he's going to pick up where he left off, and he's already started that. Trucks will be off this weekend, but they will race at Vegas the next weekend, I believe. But yeah, Zane, and of course, that's another thing, too. You mentioned Zane's going to be making cup starts in the 38. And that, unfortunately, puts Todd Gilliland's situation, it makes his situation pretty difficult. Luckily, obviously, Gilliland was not too pleased because at first it was announced he was going to return to front row full-time, all 36 races. But now that's not happening. And Gilliland, he was able to fill in all but one race that is needed to run the full season. Rick Ware was able to come in and have him run about 5 races. They still need, I think, one of the Talladega races. But there's a couple options out there. I know Josh Reum's been knocking on his door. He's got that new team he's starting up. So, obviously a difficult situation for Todd, and
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, and it definitely really sucks when it's like, you have your plans figured out for the year. You're planning on being full time, and then you just kind of get the rug pulled out from under you like that. I definitely From what I understand, what happened was there were plans for a third car for Zane in certain races, but his sponsors wanted more races than Front
Right.
Row was willing to do that. And so, unfortunately, that meant they had to cut back on one of their drivers. And if we're being honest, Michael McDowell is definitely the top guy there right now,
Yeah.
mainly just because of the experience that he has. And Todd Gilliland, I feel like, is criminally underrated right now. I mean, I know he's kind of a Toyota outcast. So it's like, I just feel like, no one gives him the credit he's due. I feel like he's got a ton of talent, and if he gets the opportunity to hone it, I think he's going to surprise a lot of people. And so it just really sucks to see, this kind of have to happen to him. I'm just glad to hear that he's going to. It sounds like he will still be able to run the full year, even if it's not with the best equipment. But I would love to see him get another shot in a top car.
Yeah, absolutely. And I thought, Todd immediately kind of made some noise in the dual race. He almost won the dual race, and just had a lost control for a moment, was able to save it. Um, and I think Todd's definitely on a mission this season more than he was last year for sure. I do agree he is criminally underrated, and I also do think it doesn't help the fact that I think Front Row Motorsports has had like 4 or 5 drivers in 4 or 5 years in that 38 car. They went from David Reagan to John Hunter Nemechek to Anthony Alfredo to Todd Gilliland, and we can assume Zane Smith will probably have that 38 full time next year. So not only is Todd going to have to really show himself, he's really going to have to race for his career moving forward. And yeah, he's still a young driver, and he's got potential, and I think he'll get an opportunity elsewhere if that's what ends up happening here.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So something interesting to bring up there with the trucks. We'll talk about the ARCA race that took place Saturday afternoon. We had the privilege to hang out a lot with Brayton Laster and his folks. And I thought what Brayton did with his car was really cool. Had the what do you like to call the mom and pop special. Had a bunch of small businesses represented on his car. He also did the Drive for Humanity donations, and people had got to donate and put their names on the car. So I thought that was really cool what he was doing. There were a lot of stories too with ARCA and a lot of entries too.
Absolutely. I would say this was probably one of the best ARCA races in a while. Um, it's like you had a full field pretty much. 41 entered, so one went home, which I don't think anyone really DNQ'd. The 01 and the 82 both withdrew, so pretty much everybody who attempted got to race. And, just for somebody who's been in ARCA for 5 years now and seeing the kind of decline it's had, seeing not only this larger field, but this larger competitive field was also really awesome to see. Because, I mean, honestly, until the end, you didn't know who was going to win. I thought this was one of the most competitive ARCA races in years to this point. And I hope it's a sign of good things to come for the series. Things are looking pretty bright for this year. I know that there's a new TV deal in place with Fox Sports where every race will be televised live, which I think that's awesome.
I agree.
So, yeah, so we're just going to have to wait and see how the year pans out. It was obviously great getting to see a bit of an underdog win with Greg Van Alst. I mean,
Yeah.
you saw the emotion in his interview, and obviously you have to thank the Lasters for letting us come out and hang out with them. That was so exciting, just being able to be back in the garage area like that and getting to hang with such a good group of people. So thanks to the Lasters and Mullins Racing for the hospitality.
Yeah, thank you so much to the Lasters and Mullins Racing, like you said. And I agree. I've been concerned with ARCA, and I'm glad they got this full deal with FS1. Seeing Greg Van Alst win and saying, like, short track guys like me aren't supposed to be here and winning these kind of races. And, it's such a good story. Because, in recent years, it's kind of been the Toyota show. It's been the Venturini show. And, to see.
Yeah, I mean, they were on 6 straight wins up until this year.
Yeah, I mean, so to me, and there were a lot of stories. There were a lot of stories. We bumped into a couple guys from a NASCAR Euro team called Marco Stipp Motorsports, Gordon Barnes and Chris Lehman. They were there for Miguel Gomez, who was running the Daytona race, a driver from Portugal who drives for Marco Stipp as well. And I thought that was really cool to see that. Obviously, a lot of eyes were on Frankie Muniz, Mr. Malcolm in the Middle. He's run the full ARCA schedule, and he impressed. He was fastest in practice, so he was Malcolm in the front, and he finished, I think, 11th or something like that. It was a really impressive showing out of Frankie.
I mean, competing for the win there at one point, right up at the front. And who knows what would have happened had he not had that issue.
Yeah, absolutely. And we had like 5 or 6 females in the race. Mandy Chick was the highest finisher in 5th. Amber Balkan was 6th. Both of them had very impressive runs. Frankie Muniz did finish 11th. Also there was LeVar Scott, obviously driving for, I believe, Rev Racing, finishing in 4th. He had a strong showing. Good comeback by Sean Corr, who wrecked in qualifying, ended up in a wreck, and started last and ended up finishing in 3rd. So a great run for him as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I know Mandy Chick impressed a lot of people there. Because I think this was her 2nd or 3rd start.
Yeah.
I'm not 100% sure, but just to be able to come out to Daytona for the first time and do that in that competitive field is really impressive. I think she's running the full schedule, so we'll just have to see where it goes from here.
Yeah,
I know the next race is at Phoenix here in a few weeks.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing how drivers like Mandy Chick do. She was really impressive, and I think she's got a ton of potential. Good run. Also, Natalie Decker, she finished in 14th. There was Logan Mizuraka, she finished 18th, driving the Celsius Chevrolet. And also, shout out to Robbie Lyons. It was great to see him back at the racetrack. He had a strong showing and finished in 17th, so it was great to see Robbie back. I know he hasn't been racing in stock cars in quite a bit.
Oh yeah, it was great getting to catch back up with him. We hadn't spoken in a couple of years, and it was like we never left. So, and just being able to put in that strong performance there, I think was really awesome for him. And I hope that we get to see him more this season.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, he talked to us. He's like, I'm just here to come out, have fun. And I think he did that. I think he came out and have a good time. So I think that's definitely important there. So, ARCA race was great overall. And then we had Xfinity, which that race was quite interesting in its own. Austin Hill ended up getting the win there. But, of course, the last lap, we had a crazy wreck. Sam Mayer was sent flipping, kind of a scary crash. Thankfully, Sam was okay. And it took NASCAR a few moments to figure out who won the race between Austin Hill, John Hunter Nemechek, and Justin Allgaier. And Austin Hill ended up being declared the winner of the Beef. It's What's for Dinner 300.
Oh, yeah. So that's 2 years in a row, obviously, for him. So yep. I think, and obviously he's got the win from Daytona with the Truck Series, and so it's like I just kind of feel like he's kind of starting to show himself more as a good super speedway racer.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And he won. I guess I have to account for this now. Atlanta. He won one of the Atlanta races last year.
Oh yeah, you got to count that too now.
Yeah, that's one thing I'm still trying to get used to with Atlanta. But also Parker Retzlaff hanging in there, finishing in 4th for Jordan Anderson. Great run out of him. Sure.
Retzlaff is another one of those really underrated guys who I think is just going to continue to impress people this season.
I agree. I was impressed by him last season when he was driving for Ryan Sieg. I'm really looking forward to seeing Parker Retzlaff race more. I think he's definitely an underrated guy, and I think people should have some eyes on him for sure.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Let's see, Myatt Snyder finishing in 5th. Good turnaround. Of course, last year he had a kind of a scary crash in that race. Joe Graff Jr. finishing in 7th. Cole Custer, of course, a lot of eyes are going to be on him. He's being brought down to kind of see if he can get a mojo going in the Xfinity Series again and perhaps be back in Cup next year, hopefully. Chandler Smith finishing in 12th. Stephen Parsons in 13th. And then there was a little bit of beef. not playing along with the name of the race, the beef it's what's for dinner 300. We had a little bit of beef between Jeffrey Earnhardt and Parker Kligerman after the race. It happened because Earnhardt was actually running 10th. He was having a strong showing. Of course, he's an Earnhardt, so obviously when it comes to Earnhardt and Daytona, there's a good combination there. And Jeffrey, Parker Kligerman went up on Jeffrey a little too much and rubbed off the 44 and gave Jeffrey a flat tire, and unfortunately dismissing any chances of him having a good run or even pulling off the upset. Earnhardt ended up finishing in 28th, and they had a bit of a discussion after the race.
Oh, yeah, I mean, not like that happens, you're going to have a discussion.
Yeah.
I mean, that was honestly one of the dumbest things I've seen Parker do, which I've not seen him do a whole lot of things. He's dumb things. He's usually a pretty level-headed driver. So it's likely just a mistake on his part. Every driver makes them.
Yeah.
You just got to learn from it and move on, and hopefully he can do that.
Yeah, I think he will. It was just one of those big goof-ups, and I think a lot of drivers have them at some point in their careers. Even the greatest do. So, I mean,
Absolutely.
They're going to forget about it. They're going to move on and progress with their seasons. Of course, Parker, he's going to be doing a lot of truck racing as well.
Forget about it.
Well, yeah. I guess I shouldn't say that because obviously Denny and Chastain, but,
Jeffrey Earnhardt's going to keep that in the memory bank for a long time, I think.
He will. I think, he kind of channels in his inner grandfather a little bit at times, but, I'm looking forward to seeing how he does with Alpha Prime Racing. Obviously, last year he had a great moment. That Talladega race where he finished second, driving for Richard Childress, having Larry McReynolds as his crew chief. I thought that was really special, and obviously it would have been more special if he had won, but still, just to see him up there was pretty cool. So, interested to see how he does this season with Alpha Prime and that team.
Yeah, definitely.
Yep, and now, obviously the granddaddy of them all, the Daytona 500. Obviously this was your fourth. This was my first, and just a heads up, I am working on a special video on my channel, Gray Speed Productions. You'll be watching it on this channel, actually, so weird I say that, but I am working on a special video talking about my experiences. I got a lot of interviews from people and stuff like that, so I'm going to work on that this week and hopefully have it out by the end of this weekend. But
all right.
Yeah, and and obviously you have your vlog out too, so be sure to check out Michael's vlog as well from his Daytona trip. I popped in a couple of times in that as well. And yeah, so the Daytona 500. Overall, I thought, the race at the first, I want to say about 80% of the race went by pretty quick. It was pretty calm. There was a lot of green flag pit stops. We had one instance, Riley Herbst, where he kind of slid off. He's able to get his car back going. There was no caution. He's kind of locked up and spun out coming on a pit road with the other Fords. But yeah, I mean, there were some good stories for this race coming in. Obviously, you had Kyle Busch with his new ride, leaving Jogas Racing, joining Richard Childress. Jimmy Johnson coming back to NASCAR, being a part owner of Legacy Motor Club, formerly known as Petty GMS. Travis Pastrana making the Daytona 500 in a third 2311 racing car, and the stories just keep piling up with this race. And obviously the 75th anniversary, the 65th Daytona 500, and kind of a storybook ending for Ricky Stenhouse Jr., winning the Daytona 500 for JTG Daugherty Racing, the team's second win ever. They won. The only other race they won was 2014 at Watkins Glen with AJ Allmendinger, and for Stenhouse, first win in 199 races. Go back to the summer of 2017 at Daytona. So, overall, it was really cool just getting to see kind of an upset winner, basically, with Stenhouse and that small team. And obviously sponsored by Kroger, us being from Cincinnati, that made us happy. Cincinnati-based company ended up winning the Daytona 500. So overall, I mean, what were your thoughts on the 500? What did you think of Stenhouse winning, and what did you see out of this race?
I generally thought it was a really good race. I mean, for the most part, it ran fairly clean up until the final 20 or so laps, but it was good racing at the same time. So I think that's kind of the best thing you can ask for is, you want it to be clean, but you also want it to be competitive. And I think that's what we got for the most part.
Yeah,
Obviously, at the end, it did kind of start to get a little bit more hectic, but you're going to have,
yeah,
for a race of this magnitude. So it's like, you can't really hold that too much against it. Um, just everybody going for 500 glory, and it's just really good to see an underdog in Stenhouse and JTG get the win. I'm really excited for them. I kind of feel like he's a very underrated super speedway driver because every time he comes to one of these tracks, he's right there in the mix. Um, and just to finally be able to get that win in the biggest race of them all, it's got to be special for them and that team. And you've also got to think about what it's going to do for them this season. Because, I mean, this is probably going to bump them up about 7 or 8 spots in the standings, which is also going to be a huge end of the year purse increase.
yeah,
If he makes the playoffs, which he most likely will, but I don't want to say it's a done deal yet because, we saw this last year. We could easily get 16 different winners this season, and
yeah.
so that could make it a little bit more interesting. So it's just going to be kind of have to wait and see. But at the end of the day, this is huge for that whole organization.
It is, and I mean, literally going into last season, there were talks that they were going to possibly sell their charter and pack up and exit the sport. But now, I think you got to have second thoughts. Now, I mean, you just won the Daytona 500, and
Oh yeah,
yeah. And as you said, it's a big payout if they make the playoffs. Obviously, now your goal is, work on getting stage points, getting good finishes, and Stenhouse can certainly do that with this team. We've seen it before. He can certainly do it. And obviously, yeah, when we go to super speedways, his name's got to be thrown in the mix for an upset. He's good on those tracks. He's shown it. And obviously, I know people like to pick on him and call him Recky Stenhouse, but we gotta give him some respect here. He's fought for this moment, and winning the Daytona 500 not only changes your season or career, it changes your life. He is now going to be forever known as a winner, not just Daytona, but the 500. We were walking by the Motorsport Hall of Fame. They had the handprints for all the winners, and now his is going to be on there relatively soon. So,
yep, he is immortalized in NASCAR history now.
yeah, exactly. So can't help but be thrilled for them, and obviously for Tad and Jody Geschichter. I hope I said that correctly. Jody, the first female owner to win the Daytona 500, and Brad Daugherty, former NBA All-Star, who's also a part owner of the team, first African-American team owner to win the Daytona 500. So some really cool stories out of JTG Daugherty Racing and Ricky Stenhouse Jr. here. So kind of a bittersweet ending.
Absolutely.
Yep, and with that, overall, I had from personal experience, I had so much fun. I've always wanted to go there, and the last few years I was trying. COVID happened, I switched jobs, and finally I just found the time to do it, and I'm glad I did. I'm glad we got to go down there and really experience that. It was hell of a lot of fun. So.
Oh yeah,
So, next year,
absolutely.
yeah, I think that's the first question you asked me as we were exiting the grandstands after Stenhouse won. So we'll definitely have to do that. But
Yeah, we're gonna have to go to Volusia this year
yeah,
or next year. I mean,
yeah, we unfortunately weren't able to make it out there. We did check out New Smyrna on, I want to say, Tuesday night. So I got to check that place out, see some late model racing and modified racing. I thought that was pretty cool. So yeah, I mean,
yeah, Hirschman with the W and William Byron with the W in the super late models.
yeah, there were some NASCAR guys running the late model race. We saw him, Byron. We saw Friesen. We saw Johnny Sauter, which obviously Johnny Sauter was supposed to drive the truck race for G2G Racing, but backed out last second. I'm not really sure. Something fell through. Norm Benning ended up attempting to qualify. Unfortunately, did not make the race. But in practice, I mean, he was pretty fast. He got 10th. So hopefully we could see Norm back in the truck here soon.
Yep. Who knows?
Yeah, exactly. So one chapter closes, another opens, and we this is only the beginning. We head out to Auto Club, and I guess it's kind of fitting that I say a chapter closes because obviously the big story coming into this weekend is that this is going to be the final race at the 2 Mile Oval. So they announced this plan back in 2020. They said that we're gonna tear up. The original plan was, I think, after the 2022 race because they weren't able to host a race in 21. So they were going to tear up the track and turn it into a half-mile short track. But 2022 race came and gone. It was a great race. It was a great first impression off the super speedways for the next gen car. And suddenly we're like, any news? There was nothing for a while. So after a while, I started to think, okay, maybe this just got called off, or what's the holdup? So there was just a lot of question marks, and I feel like there still are. Back in the fall, though, somebody posted on the NASCAR Reddit, like, hey, they're starting to take down some of the grandstands to prepare for this. So they have confirmed they are still doing this, and that this track will become a short track. But we don't have a full time frame yet. The track president of Auto Club did confirm they will not have a race in 2024. So they're hoping 2025 or 2026 they will have the short track ready to go. There's been a lot of mixed reactions out of this. Some fans kind of don't like it. Some drivers kind of don't like it. You know, I think it's great because I know people have been wanting more short tracks. And NASCAR for sure wants to stay in SoCal. LA, it's the second largest market in the country. You just had the Clash at the Coliseum. And even they've been talking about making that a points race in a way to substitute for Auto Club. But, I mean, they're still kind of discussing this and trying to figure out what's the right thing moving forward here. So, I mean, I've always been 50-50 on it. I've always liked the big 2 Mile Oval. At Fontana, I've always thought, there's a lot of speed, there's a lot of fun there. That track provided a lot of great finishes. But, I don't know. Michael, what do you think about this whole Auto Club situation?
Personally, I kind of side with the drivers. I honestly would have preferred them if they wanted a short track in the area. I would have rather seen them go to a track like Irwindale or Kern County, something like that. Because I feel like this here track is one of the best on the circuit right now. And so just kind of to see them just kind of tear it down like that, I feel like it's going to be very detrimental to the track and honestly probably to the sport. It's like we do want more short tracks, but it's like we'd rather see them go to, some of these purpose-built short tracks and not having to destroy some of these beautiful racetracks that really have no issues. And I know there's some logistical issues with that, but it's like I definitely feel like there's better ways of getting this done, and I kind of feel like this is not really the way to do it.
Yeah, I mean, I totally get it. My biggest thing has always been, what are we doing here? It's like, I really hope that they can at least figure something out or whatnot. It's truly the end of an era. I mean, I've known that track growing up, or not really growing up, but watching it on TV. And honestly, that's always been a track I've wanted to go to. And I guess a worry I have is, will it lose its flair becoming a short track? That's the kind of worry I have, because there's just something unique about that track. Not to mention, like, you probably have seen this track in car commercials a lot. Funny enough. Not only that, it was also used.
24 Hours of Montana.
Yeah, and it was also used. Oh yeah, you were about to say, yeah, 24 Hours of Fontana. Ford versus Ferrari. They filmed the 24 Hours of Daytona at there since it took place in the 60s, which I found kind of comical. But yeah, I mean, this weekend's gonna be bittersweet. For a lot of the drivers, they're all probably going to want to win the last race on that configuration. And I guess, people also feared, like, if you just repave the track, the racing character may get taken away. And suddenly the racing product there may not be as great. It's happened to numerous tracks. Obviously, you've heard people talk about how since the repaved Texas hadn't been great, or Kentucky and that track got taken off the schedule, or people weren't thrilled about when Bristol got reconfigured for a bit. So you know, I guess I get it. You definitely need to try something different, and I fingers crossed this works out. Like fingers crossed, because I'm pretty sure if they get this going, they get the short track going, they get it built. I feel like at least they'd make that a playoff race, if not the season finale, or put a second date there. Because I mean, you have this new next gen short track. It's in SoCal, right there near LA. You probably want to push that to be the season finale at some point. It's just a thought though. So this is just kind of a wait and see ordeal.
Yeah, I'm not looking forward to it, but obviously it's not my decision, so I'll wait and see how it turns out.
Oh yeah, all we can do is just remain optimistic. I mean, that's pretty much the best thing you can do. Um, yeah, just go for it with optimism. We got the Xfinity and the Cup Series there this weekend. Kyle Larson won the Cup race there last year. Cole Custer won the Xfinity race there last year as well. I would say for sure, Cole Custer's definitely got to be a favorite for the Xfinity race, no doubt.
Okay. I actually don't know who is it.
But yeah, and then for the Cup race, you got you know Kyle Busch, or I should say Kyle Larson. Got my Kyles mixed up. Kyle Larson's a favorite there. Tyler Reddick ran pretty well there until he had an issue last year. Some front runners listed. Kyle Busch. So now we can. I think yeah, Kyle Busch for sure because we saw him. He was pretty fast at Daytona, but now we're off the Super Speedway. Let's see how he does on the other tracks with Richard Childress Racing, and see what happens. See if he can come out and try and win a race. Of course, one of his notable wins there was 2013, that crazy finish between Logano and Hamlin that unfortunately sidelined Hamlin for a little bit with that injury because he hit a wall that didn't have safer barrier. But you take away that, it was definitely a fun finish with the unfortunate thing that happened to Hamlin there that led to Kyle Busch winning that race.
Yeah, absolutely. If you were to ask me who I'm going with for this weekend, what I would probably say is Tyler Reddick, just because this seems like one of his stronger tracks, and obviously he came so close to winning it last year, and so I feel like he's probably going to be a pretty safe pick, so that's going to be who I go with.
Yeah, I think Reddick's a good pick to go with. I think Reddick, I'm thinking Ross Chastain, I'm thinking Larson again. I think those are some good names that I think will do well there. Heck, I'll throw in Eric Jones. He ran kind of solid there a year ago as well. And I'm really tempted to see how there's a few teams I'm keeping my eye on. One of them is Legacy Motor Club. I'm excited to see how that team does with Jimmy Johnson kind of coming in as an owner, and you got a solid lineup there. You got Eric Jones. He's shown he can get it done. You got Noah Gragson, who I think is a ton of talent. And another team I want to keep my eye on, I didn't mention this earlier, RFK Racing. They showed up at Daytona. They led 74 laps total between Brad and Buescher. So let's see if that team can carry over that momentum into race number 2. So I think we should keep our eyes on Buescher and Keselowski as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so while the future of this track and NASCAR in SoCal is kind of up in the air, we're hoping we can hear some news. We're still looking forward to an exciting race weekend. And, of course, the start of the infamous West Coast sweep. 2023 is going to have a fun season ahead. We're going to a street course in Chicago, the All-Star race at North Wilkesboro, and a lot more stories, a lot more things to happen. So off to a fun start for sure with Stenhouse winning. And, of course, eyes will be on him, too, this weekend to see how he can follow up with his Daytona 500 win.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, it's I had a brain fart there. it's great to have the podcast back. I know it's been a while. We've just gotten busy with things, and we've been working on like how can we do this moving forward. We're definitely going to work on getting more guests for sure this year. And yeah, we're going to make this a fun podcast for everybody to enjoy.
Oh yeah, looking forward to it.
Yeah, I am too. Honestly, I've been itching to get back to this. So they also did come out with the average viewership of the 500. It averaged 8.181 million average viewers for Fox. Now it was down about close to 8% from last year, but the household share was up 2% and is now the highest share produced for any race since the 2016 Daytona 500. And obviously you got to keep in mind too with television ratings, a lot more people, they're streaming now and people may watch it through streaming. The crowd was great though. I mean, it was a sold out crowd. There was 150,000 people there or something like that.
Biggest crowd I've seen out of all the years I've been there.
Yeah, I mean, obviously if there was any other big crowd that I could remember of all the years I've been to races, the 2005 Brickyard 400, the very first Cup race I went to, I think there were like 200,000 people there. And of course, that was when that was pre-2008, before everything happened there. So, yeah, I mean, it was great to see a big crowd like that again. I know they've been doing a great job selling out the 500. Of course, you cannot count 2021 just because there were circumstances that couldn't allow for it to be sold out. But still, I mean, it was great. To anyone who hasn't been to Daytona, get down there. At least, even if you're not a racing fan. I was talking to a couple people at work today or last couple days about it since I got back, and they were like, oh yeah, I may not be much into racing, but I'd like to go down there just to see it, which just...
Oh yeah.
Yeah, which just, it's like it's like events like the Kentucky Derby or the Indy 500. It's one of those things like you gotta at least go once in your life. If you get to go multiple times, that's even better, obviously. But that first time, especially for me, just first of all, walking through that infield for the first time and just taking it all in, I'm like, oh my god, this place is massive. I've always seen it on TV, but to see it in person, this place is unbelievable. And they really did a good job with Daytona Rising. They did a really good job with that. The fact that it just felt more like a stadium.
Oh yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of what they were going for.
Yeah.
When they put in the new Daytona Rising, I think that's kind of what they were trying to do with that, and I think they did a really good job of it.
I agree, and especially you had one Daytona. Not many tracks have stuff like that. A lot of tracks are kind of out in the middle of nowhere, unfortunately. But Daytona, I mean, before or after a race, you can hang out. They got shops. They got all sorts of things. After the 500, we were waiting to get in to eat at Cheddar's. I mean, there was a Cheddar's right across the street. So, we had some tendies.
We didn't have to wait too long either.
Mm-hmm. It was like, 30-minute wait? Wasn't too bad.
Yeah, which after the 500, it's like you would expect it to have a much longer wait, but they were getting people in and out there really quick.
Yeah, I mean, I was sitting there going, we'll see what's available. I'm like, oh, okay, 30 minutes, not too bad. But yeah, one Daytona has all sorts of cool things down there, and I was just blown away by that. And I start to wonder is what Daytona is like now, and seeing the everything around the track like that. Is that the future of racetracks? Could we see racetracks do that a little more often?
It would help if they did that.
It would. I think there were recent news. Worldwide Technology Raceway in St. Louis, they bought a piece of land by the track, and I think they want to put in like some sort of entertainment complex, which I think is fantastic. And that, I'm not trying to be biased because I have family in St. Louis and I treat St. Louis like a second home, but I've always believed with the location of that track that Gateway, I always believed growing up, like the Cup Series should race there, and they're there finally. And I think and I know they're still like working on stuff there. They're adding a bunch of stuff over time, from what I remember. So they're going to continue to improve on that. And of course, I'm intrigued to see with other tracks too, and see what they do, especially with the new Auto Club, turning it into a short track. Hopefully that works out, and hopefully we can get some confirmation on that. And kind of intrigued to see if other tracks may step in and try stuff like that. Does NASCAR continue to do Nashville Super Speedway, or will they do Nashville Fairgrounds finally? Who knows?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think it would definitely help if they had, something like one Daytona round. It may not be logistically possible for some of these places, but I think it would help,
right,
attract people, and then just help with exposure and visibility and the fan experience. So if it's possible, it would be great to see more tracks do something like this.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's what some of them are going to start aiming for here. And I'm kind of curious to see, especially with the NASCAR schedule. They said they're going to continue to get more aggressive. We may have an International Cup race next year. So it's intriguing to see what's going to happen in terms of these tracks and the scheduling and how this all plays out. So, I mean, I'm really intrigued. But besides that, we got a fun season ahead of us, and I'm really looking forward to Fontana this weekend. So yeah, comment, and by the way, comment down below what did you think of the 500, and how do you feel about the Auto Club reconfiguration, and what are your picks for Auto Club this weekend? Comment down below and tell us what you think. And besides that, Michael, do you want to share anything regarding your racing career and what you have planned for 2023 before we close out?
Yeah. So for 2023, I think our plan right now is, right now we don't really have a schedule out. That's still kind of coming together. But I will be back running the Illini Midget Series. I'd like to try to run for a championship there if possible. I don't know if it will be, but we're definitely going to see if we can do it. And I will also be back in the Blaster Motorsports Dirt Late Model and CRA Street Stock, and possibly do some asphalt late model stuff for them too. We don't know on that yet. It's just kind of going to come down to, where the season goes and what's available. But the CRA Street Stock and Dirt Late Model, we know for sure we're going to be in. Super excited to get the season started. And we are also we're trying to find something to run ARCA. We're hoping to run the race at IRP, and we'll definitely see what we can do with that. I'm just really looking forward to all the opportunities I have this year to get back behind the wheel, and we're just ready to get it started.
Sounds good. It only starts from here and nowhere but up, right?
Nowhere but up.
That's right. Well, that's going to close up the first podcast in a while for us. Thank you for tuning in to the Dropping the Hammer Racing Hour, and we'll be back next week to talk about Auto Club and preview Vegas and whatever other news pops up in the NASCAR world. So, seriously, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. And, yeah, that'll do it for us. I'll see you guys next time.
Okay, we'll see you.
See you.